Hello everyone and welcome to Tips and Tricks from a Jedi session. My name is Mrunal Shridhar and I'm a senior product consultant for Tableau based out of our offices in London. Basically, I get paid to play with the product, absolutely enjoy my job, and hence the reason why I'm here today showing you tips and tricks. So, what should you expect out of this session today? Well, for starters, this is not just necessarily a session where I'm just going to show you a bunch of tricks which you're going to then go ahead and replicate and then impress your colleagues. What I really want you to get out of the session today is to start approaching different problems in a more creative way using Tableau. So some of the things that we're going to look at today, right, are of course tricks that you can actually just go and use it in your business today. However, most importantly, you'll see that it takes a particular way of approaching a problem and to think about a problem. And once you basically have that courage, okay, of being confident in your skills in Tableau, you'll see that you can actually do some really, really cool stuff. Okay? Now, first of all, are these tips and tricks uh, default in Tableau? Meaning, can I go find a knowledge base article or do I get trained in these tips and tricks? Well, it actually turns out a lot of these tips and tricks are side effects. And I like to use the word side effects because they actually are side effects of some of the features and functionalities that we built into the product. So our engineers are busy working, adding new features and functionalities in Tableau. Now they have a particular use case in mind when they develop this new features and functionalities. But oftentimes, what we don't realize is that all these new features and functionalities have got some beautiful side effects. And these side effects can actually help us solve some really, really complex problems a lot of times. So let's look at a simple scenario, right? Now we all know that in Tableau there are a variety of different ways to do a Pareto chart. But if I were to give in a simple chart like this, how do I even get started with my Pareto chart? Now, for those of you who don't know what a Pareto chart is, it's normally used to do 80-20 analysis. So, for example, a simple question to ask from a Pareto chart would be, where's 80% of my sales coming from? Who are all these customers? Right? That would be the sort of question that you would ask from a Pareto chart. And it's become really popular in business in terms of visualizing where you should lay more focus in terms of your efforts. So let's look at this particular visual. We can see that I have each one of my customers listed down here, and then I have the sum of profit associated for all these customers. So as I said, first of all, for Pareto, what I really need is, some sort of a way to figure out who are my top profit customers. So in some ways, all I really need is just basically sorted descending by customer name based on sum of profit. And I can see that, okay, here are the ones which are positive profit, and then down below over here, I see some negative profits. So how do I create a Pareto chart out of it? First of all, I would need to come in here and say, okay, give me a quick table calculation, which is a running total of all my sum of profit. And right away, you'll see that I'm getting the shape that I would like to have for my Pareto chart, where I can see that at some point I reach a high point. This actually could very well be over 100% of my profit because so far I haven't encountered any negative profits. And then you can see that because of negative profit, I actually see it diminishing down here. So if I were to convert my axis over here, which is the running sum of profit, into the percentage of the total profit that I'm making, I might want to actually come here and do an edit table calculation and say perform a secondary calculation on the result. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say give me percentage of total of this running total. And because I don't want to break my calculation, I'm just going to have it calculate on the customer name level. And let's just go ahead and apply it. And as we would expect, right, if we see this point, right, we actually were making a lot more money here, right? We were actually 150% of our actual profits. But where we truly saw the impact on our profit was around this point where we started having negative profit. Okay, so this is one way of visualizing what customers of mine are actually profitable. So basically, we can see that 80% of my customer actually just comes from a very few of my customer base, right? So if I look at this particular point, maybe, right? You can see that I've just got a very few customers, in fact, right? I've got about 200 customers, right, as you can see here, which basically bring in 80% of my profit out of 2,700, right? So maybe I should just pay more focus on them and make sure that I retain those guys. But this is the actual customers. What if I just simply want to see the percentage of total customers, right? How do I actually go doing that? Well, that's the true Pareto visualization, right? So one of the ways to approach that would be to actually come down to customer name and actually do a count distinct of my customer and then do a running total. But as you can see, uh, count distinct in this particular case, it tells me it requires a extract. So what's going on here? Well, I'm connected to an Excel file, and Excel in Tableau does not have the possibility to do count distinct, right? So if I want to do count distinct, I would actually need to use extracts. So what if I don't want to use extracts? I want to be connected live to my Excel spreadsheet and still do my Pareto analysis. Well, good news is here's where table calculations can be extremely powerful, right? So let's do one thing here. I'm going to take this customer name and drop it on the level of detail. So I can see I've only got one big bar chart here for all the sum of my profits. Um, so let's actually do a count distinct using table calcs. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop the number of records in the column shelf. So I can see that I have number of records for every single customer, right? Every single time they've been repeated. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to do a count distinct, right? So we need to get down to the most minute level possible. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say because it's number of records, the most minute level for me to work on would be a minimum number of records, right? So now I have, as you can see, one record for every single customer. So in some ways, I've got a distinct occurrence of a particular customer. And I guess this is a good starting point for me to now start building my Pareto. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come down here and say, give me a quick table calculation and give me a running total, right? Now again, you'll see that, I have my running total, but it's the same as the min number of records. Why? Because I don't know where I need to be computing this running total. So let's actually tell Tableau that, well, actually calculate for every single customer that I have. And right away, you can see that we got that shape of the Pareto chart. Okay, but the numbers that we have over here are not what we wanted. I mean, this is good. This is giving us a bit of a rank, right? So basically, it's telling me that, a particular customer is ranked 183, right? But it's not giving me the percentage of total. So one single change here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually say that perform a secondary calculation here and give me percent from, and let me make sure that I have customer name here, and we're going to say give me the percent from the last value. So then we know that last being 100%, where do I stand relative to that 100%? and go ahead and hit apply, and exactly the view that I'd been looking for, 100% of my profit, and here's where the percentages that I have for different customers. Okay, so here's a really quick and fast way of building a Pareto chart with percentages on both the sides, right? Um, so if I were to now look at 80% of my profit, I can see that it's actually just between 5 and 10% of my customers, right, would generate that 80% of the profit. But what if there are other ways? So as I said, we just got around using count distinct, right, using table calcs, and we used one approach. But the beauty of Tableau is that a lot of times there is not just one way of building a visualization or doing a calculation. So what I mean by that is if you're to simply take this and let's repeat it, okay? So it's the same calculation. All I've done is I've just copied it twice. But let's go ahead and in fact I'm going to go to edit table calculation, and rather than saying percent from, this time I'm going to say give me percentile and hit apply. And guess what? The results are exactly the same. So now what we have is another way of building the same visualization using a different type of calculation in Tableau. Remember that running total that we had earlier, right, of the customers? So if I were to now say that actually just give me the running total, this was giving me the rank. I can do the same thing by coming here and now saying rank the same way, right? It's just that it's a different way of presenting my ranks because now I have a lot more option. I can pick between all the different possibilities here when it comes to rank, right? So I can pick competition rank, modified competition, dense, or unique. Earlier, I didn't have that possibility. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that when it comes to using Tableau, be creative. Don't just think there is one way of solving something. I'm sure you would find a solution if you were to just Google it, and guess what? That is one way of solving a particular problem. Who knows? It's probably not the most optimal way of solving a problem. So, what I would really recommend to all of you is to try your own way. Be creative, right? You're not going to break anything. Tableau is read only, right? So be creative, be courageous, and you'll see that you can come up with some really cool solutions. So in this case, you can see that we build a Pareto chart without using count distinct, right? Without generating an extract, without even writing a single line of calculation. All we did is we just use point and click operations. But what if you actually do want to write something? So let's write a simple calculation here. I'm just gonna say index by size, and that's exactly what we're gonna do in our calculation. So I'm gonna say index over size, and take this calculation now and drop that on, and let's say that we're going to actually calculate on customer name, and guess what, we got exactly the same view now by using index over size. So as I said, there are multiple ways of visualizing data in Tableau. There are multiple ways of getting to a particular point, so just be creative. As you can see, we have several different ways of building a Pareto here. So when you next time come across a particular problem, think twice because there is probably a solution which is going to be your own, not just simply copied from a blog. Okay, so let's move on and let's look at a simple scenario here. And this actually could be a very useful scenario to be implemented in terms of a solution in the business. So what I mean is, I have a few sorry, I have a few sales person listed over here, and I have the opportunity closed by each one of the salesperson. So what if I actually want to also look at what opportunities this sales folks worked on? Let me just go ahead and add that. And if I sort it descending, I can see in a descending order of opportunity closed amount. For Aaron Young, for instance, I can see all the opportunities listed here. But what if I don't want to look at, as you can see, there's a long tail of opportunities, which actually are fairly small amounts, right? So what if I just want to simply focus on the top 5 opportunities each salesperson worked on? So one of the ways I might approach this is I might say, okay, come down to filter and say, I want top 5 opportunities, and I do that, and guess what? This is not what I wanted, right? I actually wanted to see uh, 5 opportunity IDs, the top 5 opportunity IDs listed for every single salesperson. So how do I go about figuring that one out? Now, of course, there are multiple ways, right? I can use index. There are several other different ways of doing it. But let's try and now use something that we have in Tableau. It's called rank. So I just simply copied the opportunity closed amount. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, give me the rank of all this different opportunity IDs. And in fact, I'm going to be more explicit and I'm going to ask Tableau that calculate on opportunity ID level. Okay. So now the advantage is I can take this and drop it on filter, and guess what? I've got the selection here. So if I were to say give me top 5, I go ahead and hit apply, and you'll see that now I've got 5 opportunities listed for every single salesperson, right? Really nice little trick, to get your top 5 for every single salesperson. So now this is great, right? If I wanted, I could have it show quick filter like this. So if I wanted to have maybe top 20 or top 10, so let's just say I want maybe top 10, right? I could have each salesperson and top 10 opportunities for each salesperson as well. So this is great. But oftentimes when you're looking at visualization, we want to take this visualization and take some sort of action on it. Right. So typical action on this particular view could be, okay, I know what these opportunities are, and I actually want to know the status of it, or I just need to find out more about these opportunities from a particular salesperson. So yeah, I mean, I can export this data out and then grab the opportunities and make use of it, or I can view the underlying data and then make sense out of it, right? But what if I just want to actually fire an action directly from this visualization? So here's where the concept of action filters in Tableau comes in really handy. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I have this field over here called email address. So I've just used this to create a dummy email address. As you can see, in your particular use case, you might actually have real email addresses for a salesperson. But for now, I'm just gonna come in here and drop that on detail. And what I have is a possibility. So if I were to click on this and say I've got an action, so it says send a blank email to Aaron Young, right? And I have a nice little way now to send an email to Aaron Young. So I don't need to copy his email address or anything of that sort. But that is still a blank email. And first of all, how did we even create that? Well, it was fairly straightforward. All we did is we used the URL action in Tableau, and we used the URI protocol called mail2, and then we passed email address, the field that we have, right? You can grab the fields like this from here. So once you have that mail to email address, Tableau now knows that I need to take action on this particular action filter, right? So now if I come down here, when I click on it, as I said, it'll open up an email template for me to be sent out to that particular salesperson. But what if I actually want to take further action on it? So for example, what if I actually want to list down what opportunities I want them to discuss with me? Then in that case, I have this calculation over here, first of all, that I've created. Let me just drop that on the level of detail, and you'll see that I've got another action associated with it now, which is called include opportunity links in email to Dan Riviera. And did you notice I've got 2 opportunities here? See what happens when I'm here. Now it picks up 9 opportunities on top. If I'm here, it'll only pick up one opportunity on top. So if I were to basically find out about top 5 Dan Riviera is working on, I can simply just say, okay, include op links in my email, use that action filter, and guess what? It actually populates the entire email for me, right? So now I don't need to write down anything. I just simply need to hit send, and they would have the links and the details on what needs to be done. So let's see now how we actually build this. So I'm gonna go out of here, come back, and let's open this particular calculation in the edit mode. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the previous value first of all, and then I'm using Salesforce URL, attaching the opportunity ID to it. That's how I'm creating all the opportunity links. But the important bit here is that I have my previous value and the concatenation in a funky little way like this, right? So whenever you actually provide a carriage return in Tableau, Tableau will respect that. And this is exactly what we want to create multiple line items, right, of this particular URL. And that's why what we've done here is we've created a carriage return, right? And this is the little trick that basically produces um, those multiple links for us, right? So now that you have that calculation, all you need to do is when you come down to actions, you need to create a URL action, which in this case uses the email address. You can look up the details of this URL protocol for mail too on the internet, and you'll get all the details. So the one that I'm using has got mail to, email address, subject, which is going to go into my email subject, right? And in this case, I'm using %20 for the spaces. And what I'm doing in addition to that is I'm also passing in the body the calculation email line. Okay, so that's the one with all the links to the Salesforce pages. Okay, and once I have that, as you can see, I can click on any one of these and then just include all those links in an email to a person, right? Really powerful way of sending in details directly from Tableau onto someone else. Okay, so now that was a use case where we use table calculations in a really creative way, and we applied action filters to actually take some action outside of Tableau, right? So now let's go ahead and try something else. So this is a simple view. Uh, in this view, what we're looking at is the sales that we have had in different states. Okay, as a and it's shown as the percentage of total sales. So if I were to say, like for example, Arizona, you can see that bookcases were basically 7.17% of my total sales. Office machines, on the other hand, is where I almost saw, it was 1/3 of my total sales in this particular state. Okay, so let's assume a business scenario where someone says, okay, I'm performing really great. I'm the best person when it comes to selling office machines in a particular state, right? And that's why, you need to help me out more selling office machines in this particular region because I can really do a great job if you're to support me a little bit. So in this particular view, if I were to somehow try and compare this salesperson's um, performance to someone else. So let's say someone from Florida. I really need to click on Florida to go and check out the number and then go back to Arizona and then look at the number again to compare it. Now, in this case, it's fine. I'm just only comparing one value. But what if I'm trying to compare multiple values? Then it becomes a little bit tricky, right? So a good analysis in this particular scenario could be, let's look at a person's sales in a particular state, compare that to the region, let's say in this case it happens to be West, and also compare it nationally so that we can have one view of all of it. So how do we go about doing that? Well, there are ways of doing it. One of the ways would be to leverage the power of table calculations in Tableau. Um, and where we have state, we use hide calculation, meaning use a lookup. Instead of excluding values, we'll be just simply hiding the values. So when someone makes a selection here, it'll only be hiding values. But it gets a bit tricky. Beside, it's just simply that we are hiding values, right? You're not actually excluding anything. So here's where blending can be really helpful. Now again, is this a classical use case of blending? Well, don't know, right? But here's what I was talking to you about. Be creative when you're using Tableau, and oftentimes you'll be surprised at the different applications when you start combining different features and functionalities. So first of all, what we need to do here is just come in here and simply just duplicate uh, this data source. Now, duplicating is not going to create new data, right? It's not going to, you know, make it really difficult for you to manage things. All it's doing is it's just generating a bunch of more XML, and that's it, right? So there is no overhead associated with it. Besides, you'll see that the solution just suddenly becomes so elegant. So what I mean by that is once you duplicate it, so now let's say if I want the percentage of sales for region as well, what I need to do is make sure that my region is selected, right? My department and my category are selected as well because I have them on the view. All these three need to be selected. But what I'm going to do is make sure that my state is not selected. And then now when I bring in my sales over here, and let's call it percentage of total, you'll see that this number are different. But if I had my state selected, it would be the same number, right? So what we are doing here now is we are breaking this state relationship, and because of that, whatever that we are selecting in the filter over here when it comes to my state selection, right? It's not affecting my region selection. Okay, and the beauty of that now is if I were to take this and drop it in the level of detail, I can use it whichever way I want. So how would you do the same for national? Well, it's exactly the same. All we're gonna do here is deselect region, right? Deselect state and just keep our selection of relationship onto the level of department and category. And then now you bring in this national share. And if I were to make this percentage of total, right, we'll get three different values. So if I were to now drop this into level of detail as well, we can create some really interesting visualization. Sorry, we can create some really interesting visualization using reference lines. So I'm gonna come in here and say, give me my region share, right? And I want to actually just add it as a single line. So I'm just gonna basically draw a little black line here, right? And we're gonna do it on a cell level. And I don't basically want to have any fill here. Okay. So now I know what was the regional share for each one of these departments and product categories. And for national, maybe what you can do is we can come in here and say for national, actually give me a little bit of fill color, and let's just go ahead and apply that per cell, right? And now I have uh, sorry, I have my national share, but actually what I just simply wanted is no lines and no labels as well, just the simple fill, right? So now the gray color is telling me what the national uh, percentage of total sales was for a particular department and category. The black marker is telling me the regional one, and the bar itself is giving me for that particular state. Right? So really powerful ways of visualizing child to parent comparison using data blending. So let's look at some more ways of working with data blending. So in this particular case, you can see that I've got a simple bar chart and I've got my order date filter associated with it. So if I move my order date filter, I can see the change in my sales values. However, it's too fast, meaning every single time I change something, Tableau automatically goes ahead and it's basically recalculating the axis for me. It's recalculating the visual for me. And that's why for me, if I were to basically compare, this time frame to this time frame, I find it really difficult to visualize that. Why? Because it's changing it so fast that I cannot remember what that shape looked like with all the bars, right? So how do we basically visualize this information where we can look at the overall sales all the time and also look at sales for a particular time slice so that we can see that what was the difference between total sales and our selected time slice. So again, blending is our friend here. The way that we can make that happen is pretty straightforward. What we do is again duplicate the data source, and if you remember in our last example, we basically deselected state in the first region share, and then for the national share, we deselected region as well as state. So in this case, what are we going to deselect? Well, we're going to deselect order date, right? So we're not going to have relationship on order date. Instead, what we're going to have is just a simple relationship on category, right? So now if I bring in my sales over here, you'll see that when I change this value, it just changes for this particular side of my visual, not for the right hand side, right? And that's exactly what we wanted, right? So let me go ahead and actually make this dual axis. So now when I change this, you can see that only one part of my visual is changing. But again, the axes are changing automatically. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to synchronize the axis for both of them. So now if I change any of it, you'll see that it's just the bar underneath, which basically tells me what the sale was for my selected time slice. And the light gray basically at all times gives me the total sales for that particular product category. Right? So a very powerful way of visualizing your data um, by using the slider as a legend. Okay. So again, one more beautiful use case of blending. Let's look at one more. So in this case, you can see that I have sales associated with all the different product categories. Right? Now, this is good to know, but what if I also want to know that when people buy office machines, do they buy any bookcases along with it? Or when they buy bookcases, do they buy any appliances or office furnishings with it? So the type of analysis that we are trying to do is called a market basket analysis, right? Now, there are loads of different ways of doing market basket analysis in Tableau. One of the popular ways is to actually go in and join the table to itself. But what we're doing with that particular approach is we are multiplying our data. And if you go with that solution to your DBA and ask him or her, could you please materialize or could you please help me run this query? They are going to be extremely mad. Why? Because it's gonna blow up your data badly, right? So what can you do so that you don't have to go and be in this awkward situation? Well, as I said, you know, there are loads of different ways of working in Tableau. Oftentimes, all it asks for is to be creative. So in this case, if I were to do a market basket analysis and I don't want to blow up my database, all I can do simply is just create, again, a duplicate data source. And from the duplicate one, we want to make sure that when people buy Office Machine, at the same time, do they also buy bookcases, right? So at what level do we want to do our analysis? Well, we want to do our analysis for every single order, right? So the level at which we want to do our market basket is essentially on the order ID level. So what I've done now is I've duplicated the source and established the relationship not on category or anything else, but on the order ID level. And basically what this now allows me to do is if I were to bring in my category from the secondary source and plug it over here, you'll see that it's actually putting together some sort of a relationship between my category from the primary source and from the secondary source. But what I want to do is actually I want to have it as a quick filter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all deselect all of it and say I'm interested in bookcases and appliances. Okay, so it turns out people who buy office machines also do spend about this much money on appliances and on bookcases as a part of the same order. People who buy bookcases, right, don't buy any appliances, and when they do buy this much worth of bookcases, they actually do buy more than two other product categories in the amount of 178,000 something dollars, right? So extremely powerful way of visualizing your market basket, right? Just by simply using blending and not exponentially growing your data. Okay, so uh, that was market basket. Now let's look at one more. And for this one, this is for all our customers who basically have uh, international customers or international consumers of their analysis. So we all know that in Tableau, we have localization and globalization, right? So globalization would be you come to help and you pick a language, the one that you would like, and what that will basically do is it'll make all of this nice little options in Tableau, this entire interface in that particular language. Second could be that you want to visualize a particular number. So in this case, let me just drop this on label. And you want to visualize this particular number in a specific format. Here's where the locale could be very helpful, right? So I can come in here and just pick some other locale. So let's just pick maybe um, German, right? And in this case, instead of comma, you can see that they use dots, right? So locale is great for formatting. Uh, the globalization functions are good for the interface. Now, if your data underneath has got the translations or it's actually using a particular script, so be it Chinese, Arabic, whatever that may be, we'll be able to visualize it over here. But oftentimes, you're not going to have data translated or in the format uh, for your entire database. So if you are looking for translation, of course we don't have, let's say, a Google Translate in Tableau, but you can take your translations and leverage that in Tableau. So what I mean by that is create a simple translation lookup. So if I were to look at this table that I've created, it was the translation one, right? You'll see that what I've done here is that I've taken all the different country names, right? So let's look at Zimbabwe here. And I've basically given the translation for all the different languages that I would like to use, right? And connected to it as a secondary data source. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna establish the relationship on the country level. And once we do that, we can now take this and drop this on level of detail. And as you can see, I'm getting an asterisk because I have country translated for all the different languages that I had. So to get the translation, the last thing I need to do here is actually take this and make it like a filter. So let's take the language and drop that on filter instead. And for now, I'm gonna say just give me all of them. And let's do show quick filter. And I'm gonna make this a single value list. So now if I pick DE, or if I pick ES meaning Spanish, right, I will have my translations on the visualization. And actually, let's for now just get rid of the sum of sales from the label, right? Extremely powerful way of providing that end user with the translations that they're looking for. Okay, so that was the last little trick that I wanted to show you. So hopefully at the end of all of this today, I hope you got a good appreciation of different features and functionalities in Tableau, and a bit of motivation to be a little bit more daring, to be a little bit more creative in Tableau. Because if you think something is not possible in Tableau, what I would suggest is think twice. And guess what? You'll be pleasantly surprised. Oftentimes, there are some really powerful, elegant ways of solving a problem in Tableau, which you never thought existed. So give it a try. And thank you for attending today's session on tips and tricks from a Tableau Jedi. Bye bye.